California who's got a real water problem could offset their financial risk on Singapore water. That'd be wonderful, right? It's not possible now, but it would be a dramatic improvement. So put into the sort of developmental stage right now is something called $H2O, which is a security token that securitizes the dividend payouts. I was talking to you about the investment side. If I'm going to let RJ, who has, let's say you have a greenhouse project, right? And you use a lot of water for that greenhouse, and you need to treat your water, your dirty water, and I'm going to give you a system, fine, and you're not going to pay for it up front. Well, who's going to pay for that system? We can't pay for it. We can only pay for a little bit of it. We can't pay for it scaling up to thousands and tens of thousands of sites. So we created a financial vehicle so that people can invest in water as an asset. Really kind of interesting, and continuing to look at how to create markets. All right, and welcome aboard, everyone. Keith Rutan says, could not make last week, saw replay. Awesome presentation. It was a lot of fun last week. I got another big one for you. Lots has been happening, so let's jump right into it. And I hope you're all having a great January. All right, here we go. Of course, water is the blue gold, as we know, and we are the ones who are revolutionizing the entire space. Pretty exciting. Ken and I sometimes have to shake each other like, what pinch? This is crazy. Where we've come from to where we are is sometimes pretty ridiculous when you realize it, right? And it's because of so many people that pulled together, including our amazing investors. January 11th, briefing number 244, water is the people's asset, and we are making it so. All right. Let's take the week's news. These are selected posts from my X feed. So let's take a quick look what's been going on here. Oh, yeah. Panama Canal. Well, they decided to accommodate larger ships, which means, you see, the Panama Canal, it runs off of gravity. It has to constantly, it feeds fresh water out to the ocean constantly. It's a big drainage canal, really, is what it is. Well, they made the canal much bigger, which drained much more water. And guess what? They didn't actually build more reservoirs. And then they had a drought. So that was very poor, but it also means that water is becoming a geopolitical issue, because at the same time as the Panama Canal is in serious trouble and has had to limit the ships that go through, because remember, every time that a lock opens on the Panama Canal, the water goes out. So to limit the amount of water lost, you had to do fewer ships. Well, okay, that's fair enough. But at the same time, we got the disaster over in the Red Sea. And so we have a double whammy for shipping. And this is not great news. The Chinese in particular are freaking out, I'm told. America is less affected because when you go from the US to the Far East, the difference between going through the Red Sea and going through the Cape of Good Hope is only about 4 or 5 days. Well, from Genoa, it adds 14 days. So there's a big issue for Europe, and it's not helped by the Panama Canal issue. Let's take a look at housing. Worst year ever for housing affordability, and average U.S. household can only afford 15.5% of the homes that went up for sale in 2023. And the supply and sales of existing homes are also at 2 decades low. So why are existing homes not moving? Well, high mortgage rates means that the people selling are not going to be able to rotate into an affordable home. The whole market is kind of freezing up right now. Now, last week I talked about how the C class, the lowest quality housing, is actually doing really, really well. And that's because people are moving down. Mobile home parks are great too. And in fact, this week we got into, there's a potential major national opportunity to help with mobile home parks with this water on demand concept. In other words, all pre-financed and just roll it. So it's exciting to be in the space because mobile home parks all need help with water. So in a way, you could say that the fact that people are moving down in their housing, in a way, is good for us. Sad, but that's kind of how it is. But again, this illustrates how existing assets are very roller coaster. And why? Because they're impacted by all kinds of government policies and the large institutions like BlackRock buying up a lot of the housing, keeping the prices high because they want to have a lot of renters. And so they are skewing the market too. This happens, things like that happen in gold and gas and oil, et cetera. Water is still relatively free of this manipulation because it's still early. All right. And this is the total system leverage, government, corporation, household margin, stock margin, and student loans. Whoa. $100 trillion of leverage. In 86, there was no leverage. Think about that. So that's 40 years, a little bit less than 40 years, 37 years. And look at where we are today. That is pretty crazy. So the blue is the gross domestic product. So that tells you that it grows, but it's nowhere near leverage. All right. Time to fall back on real assets, of course. We're being told that hiring is healthy. And what we see here, though, is that the growth in hiring is largely in government sectors, government and healthcare, which government and healthcare are not inherently productive, right? They're taxing us. Government taxes us, of course, and healthcare taxes us to keep us healthy. Things that are, trade, business services, look at manufacturing, transportation, warehousing, et cetera. So that's a picture of what's going on in this market. All right. Major USC is grappling with the escalating financial burden of immigration, are slashing budgets for essential services such as fire, police, sanitation, and education. This is another reason why decentralized water is essential. I'm not going to get into the politics of immigration. It's just not interested in getting into it. But what it is doing for sure is it's causing cities to cut back on essential services, and this includes the water infrastructure. Another reason why we are very timely. This is a cool little post. Like, okay, if you buy Starbucks every day, you end up spending over 20 years close to $20,000. Whereas if you invested the same amount of money over 20 years, you would make $161,000 over 20 years and $229 a month. So I like my coffee. Don't get me wrong. So I think that you should enjoy the product, but also invest in it. And that's true of water. So don't just drink your water and bathe in it, invest in it. This post was relayed by my good friend Alex Lightman, who is a fascinating personality on Facebook, and I would strongly recommend A. Lightman on Facebook. All right, water. Oh my gosh, we got a big problem because groundwater in the Midwest is being depleted, and now Indiana wants to use up groundwater for microchip making. Here's the problem: the Ogallala Aquifer, which supplies 40% of our produce, is already down up to 150 feet. Once it's empty, it takes 600 years to recharge. So we need to manage this better, and we need to recycle. It'll make a dramatic difference if we recycle. And that's came from Phil Goodman, who is one of the board members of Fortune Rising, the blank check company that we are in an agreement to merge with. Okay, here we have very interesting, because Elon Musk is pointing out the obvious, that people moving here, if just 4% of Earth moves here, which apparently a lot of people are just moving here, we need to have doubled housing. Not going to happen, right? So we're going to have, this is a real problem, right? Well, as part of the housing infrastructure crisis, water is a major issue. But again, we can't help. Water treatment pods can solve the problem. And that's what we have with modular water. So it's a problem. It's a disaster. Again, I'm not going to comment on immigration, good, bad, ugly. That's not the point I'm making here. But the reality is that U.S. construction industry can only increase available housing by 1% to 2% per year. And we would need to double it if 4% of Earth moved here. So that's pretty crazy. All right. I was talking to you earlier about the Red Sea blockage. So Asia to U.S. East Coast, I said 4 or 5 days. It's actually 6 days, which is okay. That's not good. Asia to Rotterdam adds 10 days, but look at Genoa, 15 days, adding more than half of the transit time. And right now, there's big panic around CNY, Chinese New Year, which is a big deal. What this is going to do is going to cause people to reshore more and more. There's going to just be more and more of that reshoring happening. Anyway, so people aren't stupid. They see that there was globalization is very fragile. Look what happened with COVID. Look what's happening with these canal blockages, with war, etc. And you have a problem if you're trying to source your products across the world. So there is absolutely going to continue to be a reshoring or onshoring process that's already begun, and we absolutely have to solve the energy and water requirements of these coming factories. All right, Alberta. Wow. You think of the prairies having water. Well, we have a big crisis there, a hot and dry 2023, and it's not getting better. So we have a problem in America, in the world right now, which is some places have too much precipitation, some places not enough, and it's causing tremendous upheaval. And again, this is why we need to manage our water better. This is the most amazing picture. It looks like a flood bridge. Literally, you have a road under a bridge. This is the oddest picture, but it really shows that there's some crazy things happening. Flood defenses, and flood defenses are becoming, this is a huge door. I can see what it is. It's not a bridge. This is a huge flood door that's been closed. And of course, it's like a dam, right? Well, flood defenses are a big deal. Venice, Italy invested in a massive floodgate program, spent billions doing it. And then the first flood came along and it failed. So not a pretty picture. So there's going to be a lot more of this flood defense going on. All right, housing affordability, here's the problem. Higher wages are expected, fine, but of course we have inflation, as we know. Plus, of course, we have a very low supply of real estate. So I don't think it's going to become much easier to get yourself a house in the years to come. It's just not, I don't think it's going to get better for a long time. All right, advanced manufacturing. I have a little video here. This was an article in CB Insights, Coldwell Banker, which was talking about cybersecurity. Okay, it's up 29%, but look over at advanced manufacturing. That caught my eye, up 258%. Why is this? Well, all our manufacturing went to China because it was very human-based, people making things with their fingers, and that was much cheaper in China. Well, now we have the ability to make these highly automated factories that are self-sustaining and self-contained and require fewer personnel, but more qualified, and that's advanced manufacturing. So I think that's going to be a boom, and built into that advanced manufacturing has got to be the water and energy infrastructure to go with it, or else it just won't work. Look at it, for example, data centers are booming. Why? Because of AI. Well, all of these data centers need water and energy that they control themselves. That's going to be a huge space that we're very interested in entering. Continuing right on, here is, the large users of groundwater are starting to be addressed. I don't know the rights and wrongs of this, but drawing down unlimited groundwater, is a problem. So it's good to know that that's happening. Capital raising for real estate funds is down, but let's see what's going on here. Here is a report in PitchBook about real assets fundraising. So capital raising for real assets funds. Here's the bottom line. Real asset funds, which is basically real estate, is in trouble. But by the way, natural resources fundraising, which includes oil and gas and now water, surpassed 2022. So we're looking good for non-real estate type asset raising. Everybody knows this, obviously, that Bitcoin, 11 ETFs, exchange traded funds, were approved. That's very exciting for Bitcoin. Frankly, the space is kind of wacky right now, but it's generally bullish. And that is driving the wide scale adoption of Bitcoin, is driving what I'm about to tell you in a little bit. So I'm going to save that little piece of news, but it will relate to this very much. Inflation down, at the same time, prices are not. What? So consumer price index rose 0.3% more than expected. So supposedly inflation is being beaten. No, it's not. Inflation is And they're done raising rates because there's an election this year, but we're having inflation anyway. What can I say? All right, a couple quick clips, and then we're going to get into some OriginClear water on demand news I think you're going to love. So let's take a look at a couple of clips first. This is Private Money Club. I played some clips from that show last week. It was very good, so we decided to do a couple more this time. Here we go. And our rule is that this water fund is going to be open to the retail investor. Over the years, we've been noodling around $4 million, $1 million a quarter, basically. Things took off in 2022, and they're going up from there. So doing great organically. That's combination of all these. Now, I've been talking about this water on demand concept, but you notice that it comes in kind of late. But that's that green mark, right? Why? Because we really want to take our time with it. There's no rush. But meanwhile, we're building the capital for it, and that's where the investors come in. Usually, of course, we're going to tell you that profits are great. That's all good. And this is where the water on demand ramp up occurs, where we start really kicking it into high gear. Where it gets exciting is once we're on the NASDAQ, we are going to acquire companies rapidly. And I won't get into the nitty gritty of it, but the bottom line is that instead of $32 million a year in 2026, we're more than 7 times as much because of the acquisitions. As you can see, that green thing, it just takes over. Acquisitions are happening. Basically, what we're talking about here is, number one, we play in decentralized water, which we've been doing since 2016, but nobody was listening. Now, even CNN is saying it's needed. And we are providing systems to customers who are paying for it. And the next generation is where we pay for it and the customer just pays us by the gallon, which, by the way, if you know all about services, they're much more profitable than products. This is water as a service. Now, where does it come into the investing opportunity? It's very simple. And that is that we have an offering that enables accredited investors to jump in and get a percentage of the profits from that basket of water systems for as long as those things are out there, plus a huge amount of equity, warrants, because you always want to have the opportunity in case things take off to buy more, and also shares in that future NASDAQ company. So it's a very attractive offering. A lot of people have bought into it. Currently, it's a very limited $20 million fundraise, of which we've already raised about $8 million. So with that, we have an opportunity for investors to be in on the beginning of this. There's players at the high end that are dealing with pharma and so forth. That's great. That's all the big PE funds will take care of that. But we are dedicated to working with the everyday accredited investor. And our rule is that this water fund is going to be open to the retail investor. It's the question of if the investor is in this fund for the duration of the fund, which might be 20 years, well, then what's their exit and so forth. And now I'm going to be covering that separately. Stay tuned. All right. And let me play the other one. That is currently a multiple. In other words, it's more than 100% of what you've invested.
Just a couple of things. I know you said it's for accredited investors. What's like a minimum investment you'd be looking for from somebody?
The unit is $100,000, but our rule is to, if you're accredited, put in what you think you're not going to freak out about, because our experience is you'll invest again. It's a good experience. You'll do well. You'll see some good multiples. And so we're perfectly happy to break up that unit. The key is to participate now. This is a new asset class. And anytime you have a pre-IPO situation in a new asset class, it's like Amazon in 1999, right? It's like kind of the time to get it, right? That's what this is about.
So is this a long-term investment? Like when would they expect to get money returned, or what kind of do the projected returns look like? It's just a little bit different than what a typical deal is that we do, like on with like direct lending on a private real estate transaction, or a private fund or something of that nature. So can you get a little bit more about the investment itself? That's
a very good question. So it's basically 3 parts. The first part is the capital that we invest in these water systems generates 25% net profit to you on a pooled basis. And you have lien rights to enforce that royalty based on the asset, because we continue to own that asset. Number two is shares in OriginClear itself. That is currently a multiple. In other words, it's more than 100% of what you've invested. With that comes some warrants. Those are opportunities to buy more. And finally, shares that we grant you in that pre-NASDAQ company. Paul asked, how is this different than the original investment, which was raised by OriginClear? No, it is identical. What I'm playing you is where I presented it to a group of investors, very sophisticated investors, and it was highly successful. A number of people came out of that webinar. And so the point being made, and I think Ken is making that right now in the chat, is that this high multiple that we've been offering is actually is about to go down. And it's very important to talk to Ken. Let me see. Okay. Keith Rutten also graphs and statistics sobering. Thank you for doing your homework well. It's a pleasure, of course. All right. Now we got some news. Latest news from Water on Demand. Ooh, we got some good stuff now. Here we go. We announced yesterday that we have a deal to, first of all, have a strategic partnership with a manufacturer, but also a deal to acquire this company. Let's take a look here. So the company is based in Buda, Texas, plastic welding fabrication. They're, of course, profitable. They are already manufacturing these modules for us. And the reason why we're doing a strategic partnership is because we not only want to have them build our modules, but we also want to build this complete water systems, stuff the modules at that location. So that's what's being done right now. But in addition, a letter of intent was signed to acquire PWF, which would be the first in-house manufacturing facility for modular water systems. So it's our early stage. It's not definitive, but it's very exciting. And I hope that I can get Sean Shoemake, the CEO, to show up to be interviewed on this show. Here he is, very pleased to prioritize, et cetera. So this is a great acquisition deal. And Bill Charneski, who brought the deal in, working with Dan Early, is to be congratulated for his work. He's the same guy that got us the Progressive Water acquisition back in the day. And of course, also the Modular Water Systems hiring of Daniel Early was Bill's work as well. This was in the press release, but basically it shows you what these things look like. The green is the high density polyurethane, polypropylene enclosure, and it's dropped into a 20-foot container, which gives you a bit of extra space for the control room at the far left. But everything else is fully self-contained, access hatches to the top, et cetera. So that is what works really well for us. Obviously, what goes inside, here you see what's called an aerobic bioreactor system, which means it kind of works like your stomach. It uses bacteria and oxygen to create a reaction that purifies the water. It's one of the stages, obviously. There's other stages. Okay, continuing here. Oh, yeah. Well, we hosted our partner, AquaTech, and their own division, Qua, hosted our symposium this week. And I thought I'd give you a quick sneak peek at what happened. Here's a quick clip. There'll be more reporting on this as we go.
Well, we're here at AquaTech, headquartered in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. And we conducted our first water symposium, which is a planned water conference between selected local engineers and consulting firms. We invited 3 or 4 different firms local to the area and brought them in. And this is through partnership and in partnership with our rep, V Systems, who are located and headquartered in Pittsburgh, as well as AquaTech and their sister subsidiary, Qua. So the 3 groups right there, we sponsored the Water Symposium, and we led a series of technical presentations talking about emerging technologies in the water industry. It was our very first trial run, but all said and done, the format for the symposium, the speakers, the agendas that were discussed, all of those things are setting the stage for us to create a road show where we can take this to different regions around the United States, partnering with and working with our strategic reps and strategic partners in these other places.
We're in Western Pennsylvania, my stomping grounds. AJ and I took a quick half-hour drive out to AquaTech for Dan's first ever water symposium, where he gathered up a bunch of really talented, brilliant, capable local water companies to continue to educate on the advancements and the advantages of decentralized water treatment, and in a way evangelize how this is the future.
The modular water system, water is a big part of what our company does, and it's always good to see a new technology.
It got a lot of gears flowing. It was exciting to watch. I'm not a water guy, but I am a business guy, and I saw the gears clicking. I saw a lot of these folks asking really smart questions on how these would be applied to specific circumstances. And I was really, really encouraged by that. So I was just thrilled to come out and press the flesh with Dan and the guys, and it was terrific.
Jenna Wilkelman, I used to sell high nickel fasteners to AquaTech. How cool is that? The big news that I have here that I'm going to follow up with, and by the way, thank you to Dan and team for putting on this symposium, and to Ken and AJ for showing up there. So that was really helpful all around. Okay, so what do we got here? We have a new incubation. We told you for a long time that we didn't want to get into the coin business because SEC didn't love it. It was complicating the whole merger, et cetera. As a result, this whole asset coin property did not become part of the merger. It's still OriginClear's intellectual property. Now that we've had this big jump in Bitcoin, ETFs, mainstreaming of it, we feel the time is right to get going. Now, what are we doing here? Number one, we have prototyping happening. Ricardo Garcia, who, as you recall, is our strategic advisor. He's a product manager for over at Red Hat, but he does this part-time, and we'll bring him a team to work with. But he's already getting into it. We have trademark and patent filings ongoing. Those never stopped. We're creating a subsidiary. And the real reason why H2O is important is this. If you are invested in the water on demand asset, investable asset, you'll ride with us for as long as the fund goes. But what if you want to bail out? Well, you can sell your rights, but where's the market for it? And it's difficult here. By having a coin, it represents, number one, it represents your ownership of the asset. Number two, it represents the entire value of the asset for its life. In other words, the contract. And number three, the dividends or profit shares that are paid. So, for example, theoretically, you could peel off the dividends, it's called coupons, right? And you could sell those and keep the contract. Or you could sell the whole future contract, or you could split it up. You can sell pieces of it. It's much, much easier done with a blockchain. There was that story of the NFL player who did that with his NFL contract. And let's say he had a $100 million contract. He sold the future value of it for discount to investors. And so he got his money now, and the investors had a future opportunity. So that's the $H2O, we believe, will become very useful to water on demand. And obviously water on demand we hope and plan will be the acquirer of this technology from us as we develop it. This is an early stage activity and is not expected to be material, meaning anything definitive, in 2024. Now, how does $H2O work? I thought I would quickly review that with you. We've gone over this before, but it starts out, this is a standard design and build. Customer puts out a purchase order to the designer and builder and pays for it. The machine, the water treatment system is delivered, commissioned, and works. Done. And a designer/builder just gets paid one time, right? Now, we add water on demand with $H2O. What happens? Well, first of all, investors and partners, stakeholders come in to the subsidiary, and that water on demand subsidiary then commissions the job and enters a contract with a customer. The operating contract drives the whole process, and price indexing is included. Remember that there is such a thing as inflation, but at least it is controlled inflation. At least it's controlled inflation. So with that, we have a rampant inflation of water contracts, and this shelters the customer from that rampant inflation of water rates by the utilities. Okay. Now, of course, the system gets built, and in addition to the usual stuff, it has a sensor array. That gives us the data flow. That goes into a database, gives performance data to the operation and maintenance. That is a local water company that maintains the system operations. Generally, Water on Demand will not do the on-the-ground maintenance. Partners like our current partner, Envirogen, will do that. And then the billings based on the performance data go to the customer, who then pays the Water on Demand subsidiary. Great. So far, so good. Now, with $H2O, the payments are not done because in this case here, the payments are made to the investor and stakeholders via automated clearinghouse, ACH, banking, direct deposit. We are currently paying investors dividends as I speak. Even though the projects aren't there yet, we are making the money work and the investors are getting paid. But that's all being done through the banking system, which is hard when you're trying to send money to Asia, whatever. But now we put in place a smart contract, which is basically a piece of logic that decides what gets paid out, the profit share, and issuances of $H2O coins go to the investors and stakeholders, and subsequently they can resell them into a potential marketplace. And this is the beginnings, we believe, of a water marketplace, a global water marketplace. Of course, they can reinvest the tokens if they want, and there is also an opportunity to do impact investing of the same tokens. So that's the whole ecology, and you can tell the big bold blue part really makes this thing kind of cool. And that's what we're working on now. And we have a new PR agency. M Public Relations is based in Los Angeles, and they are fabulous. Let's take a look at some of the things they do. They are in healthcare, education, mobility, and sustainability. And as you can see in sustainability, they are in water, alternative energy, waste, etc. One of the reasons why we hired them for Water on Demand was because they have experience with these blank check companies, what they call SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies, that we have a merger deal with. They've done that before. They helped ChargePoint, one of their major reference clients, become ubiquitous in America doing charging stations, right? So they're very, and you can tell they've got a very broad footprint. And we had our kickoff meeting today, and I must say I'm extremely pleased. All right. Well, we're up to the freewheeling discussion. Unfortunately, AJ cannot make it last minute. He was trying to make it, but then he couldn't. So, Ken, you're up.
I'm used to being a one-man act. It's fine. AJ's mom has a birthday today, so happy birthday, Mom. And yes, I guess he got caught up in a cake coma or something like that. So
we'll let it since it's 8:42 p.m. We'll let him off the hook.
Yeah, exactly. Right. He worked half a day today, which is it's okay.
You got a very sharp camera. I'm going to upgrade to your camera. I can tell. It's
not bad. It's getting there, right? Well, I'm working on my stuff. So this is not like the really good camera. The other camera was so good, it was slowing my computer down, right? I had to AJ had to stick more memory in my camera. This is just a Logitech Brio.
I got a Brio too. For some reason, I seem to have lower resolution. I don't know why.
Yeah, run it straight through OBS. It works better.
Interesting.
I'm becoming very tech savvy.
They run it through OBS, Well,
you got to run it through OBS, of course. All right. So you unpacked a lot of stuff tonight, and not to put too fine a point on it, doing what I did I told you that the dividends of yesterday's meeting we're gonna reap the whirlwind from it, right? Oh my God, yeah. So these guys are 30 minutes away. Yeah. The one guy lives in Lower Borough, 10 minutes from my house. He's like, oh yeah, I drive past you all the time. So being able to meet. So first of all, I want to thank Russ Huffmeyer and Adriana Bim. She's from Qua. And Russ is from AquaTech. And I had discussions with Sean, who's there. Sean runs the maintenance contract end of the business. So when I discussed with him the concept of water on demand, he was like, wow, that's bleeping brilliant. We'll leave the expletive out. So he loved it and he gets it. What's really exciting is when you showed the Averaskid rigs, there were two square components in one of the chambers, and that's their submersed SB. That is a Qual product. Okay, so integrating with local fabricators, local innovators, and really, yeah, there you go. Right. So those two square units there are their submersible MBR system. Very,
membrane bioreactor.
Membrane bioreactor, right? And these are submersed, and they have a very unique value proposition. They use a very, very tough fiber in there with a 0.04 micron mesh. Now that doesn't mean anything to anybody, but it's 1/635,000th of an inch, and it's 80 meters of material inside those boxes.
Jesus.
Right. So just astonishing technology. Dan absolutely loves it. Dan crushed it, by the way. Dan is able to, speak like an engineer, but not sound like he's, like a nerd, right? He's able to do it in this.
He's a good old boy.
This real, he doesn't sound nerdy. It's just, I think that's his greatest trick, right? The idea of, and I don't know how much we want to share about this, but meeting with these folks, they were so excited about partnering with us. There's an opportunity to showcase and even feature some of the amazing, like you said, what goes inside the box. It's really important, by the way, if it's vastly superior to other stuff, right? And here's what's great about our technology, about what we do. If somebody makes something better someday than what's currently in there, right? We're not married. Computers powered by Intel, right? These can be powered by Qual, powered by this, so we can have branded featuring on every one of these skids. And there would be a lot of cross-pollination in terms of distributing that news across all sorts of social media channels. This is something that I kind of popped in my head this afternoon, and I called you up all exciting. I want to share it with the audience. And when I called Dan about it, it just blew his mind, right? So well, first of all, we had a wonderful seafood tower and steak dinner. So we'll be back. I do my best thinking.
Only for the seafood tower and steak dinner.
I know. I do my best thinking on a full stomach. So we'll head out there. But honestly, I was able to meet with these folks, and there's a lot of smart guys, just business smart. So we can continue to, bring to the fore what we're doing and how we can more broadly broadcast what they do. And there'll be, imagine having 5 or 10 different individual component brands listed on your box. And every time an installation's done, Riggs, not only will there be a water on demand announcement, a modular water announcement on their page, but then Qual, and then this guy, and then that guy. So what happens is that installation is now, the news of that installation is magnified by 5-fold.
So it's the NASCAR of the water industry, basically.
Right. We're going to have all the patches. Exactly right. You know what I mean? But that's going to be, and it's an opportunity for folks who make components. They don't get a lot. They're like the unsung hero. You make this magnificent product that makes our product magnificent. But because, it's not on the outside, it's on the inside, it doesn't get the we start to recognize these things. And what Dan told me, Ken, engineers are really going to look at that. That's my best Dan. So he said the engineers will absolutely love that. And they'll start to see, I need that. And they'll find, it might be on Qual's page, on Qual's Facebook. And next thing you know, they're looking up modular water and water on demand. And next thing you know, you've got another consulting engineer bringing projects to you. So that's super exciting.
Fantastic. Well, we have some comments here as well. Paul says he thinks his local water company, Irvine Water District, might be willing to promote. He's got a friend who's connected to the water company. Great. Michael says excellent progress. Ray says symbiosis wonderful. One quantum leap after another. Well, we've had lots of news tonight. We've decided to make the fateful move, dive back into the crypto space, and this is a great time to do it because, wow, visibility for crypto is at an all-time high, and we have not been idle all these months. We've been working on the trademarking and the patent and also getting the prototyping done. what we're going to do now is we're going to create the launch company. And there's an opportunity for our investors to get a piece of it as a
The
grant.
NewCo.
As a grant.
There you go.
So
I like the fact that the allergy to blockchain and cryptocurrency, where the SEC is concerned, seems to have largely abated or disappeared. I think that reticence being gone allows us to develop this new company, which won't, be attached to currently anything, but think of the problems it can solve as a way to. What's the hard part about selling a apartment building? Finding a buyer.
right.
But if you tokenize the apartment building.
But even, let's take it away from tokenizing, just to the point about a market to sell it in. In the apartment world, there's always somebody to buy your apartment, right?
Right.
It's less obvious with a new asset, which is why
Yes.
$H2O is going to be critical to grease the whole thing and to create, think about it, a world water market. How cool is that?
A wastewater treatment market, right? And a way to monetize that.
Well, really, it's a water reuse market. Is really what
Water reuse market. Yeah. And also the value of the asset itself. That asset itself was it was a workhorse. It was just going to throw off rate of return, but the asset itself really had no liquidity event built into it. This provides that liquidity event, in addition to the several stock grants you get as a result. So this is just another, I think, really dynamite feature.
And Ray says the timing with the AI wave in crypto and $H2O is a millennial occurrence. You're writing our copy for us, Ray. Thank you.
I said last week, hire this guy, will you?
Anyway, so please do fill out your Zoom survey. We do rely on your feedback, and it's very, very helpful to us. So with that, Ken?
I do have to work on my Dan voice. You're right. It's my accent. I can't do the Western Virginia thing.
Don't bother. I'm terrible at that. I start doing accents and people.
You heard my South African today. It was terrible. It was absolutely dreadful.
Yes. Just everyone knows we are on track. I'm not going to say more than that with the overall transaction we've been talking about. Discuss that further. Stay tuned. And I'm going to try and get Sean Shoemake onto this show for an interview. It should be fun.
It'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure as always.
Good night.
Let's keep on party hardy.